I am Avanti Adizahyr. I am the CEO of the Adizahyr Group. And welcome to Behind Closed Doors, Truth About Domestic Violence. We're uncovering the truth about domestic violence. So we're going to have a little chit chat. This is actually brought to you by SIS No More, which is a support group for survivors of domestic violence, which was created by Clubs of Adizahyr. So if you are not following Clubs of Adizahyr on Instagram, be sure to do so. I have a really cool group of people and a lot of cool, great clubs, different varieties of things that you all can join and be a part of. I'll be joined this evening by a dear friend of mine by the name of Rashana M. Butler. She is a survivor, an advocate, a bridger, collaborator. The list goes on. We're going to do a quick Q&A session for domestic violence to kind of bring awareness to the cause, the issue, and basically get people that aren't familiar with it, let them in to some insight on what it is. We want to also dispel common misconceptions and provide valuable insights on how we can all contribute to prevention and support. Before we start, though, just a quick disclaimer. I want to acknowledge that today's discussion involves topics related to domestic violence, which may be difficult or triggering for some listeners and viewers. If at any time or any point that you feel uncomfortable, I encourage you to take time to basically focus on your emotional well-being and step away if you need to. But also keep in mind that the help and support is available. So stick around for that. And I'm going to bring in... We're going to bring in our guest, Miss Rashana. I guess I have to push that button hard.
Ooh, look at my forehead. Okay.
It's okay. Listen, I just ran in the house.
Listen.
I had to pick the boys up from after school, pick another one up from another place. Yeah. It's been an eventful day trying to get to the house in front of you.
I feel you. I do.
How are you today?
I'm wonderful. I'm good. I cannot complain. I'm doing really well. So.
Well, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. I kind of gave them a little spiel, but let you introduce yourself more.
What you want me to say? Like, what do you want me to give in my introduction?
Who are you? What do you do?
Okay. Well, that's simple enough. So,
yeah.
So I'm Rashana Butler, or Reverend Butler, depending on, what circle I'm in, but Reverend Rashana Butler. I am the Minister of Online Engagement at Turner Chapel AME. I'm an itinerant elder in the AME Church. My full-time job is I am the Director of Alumni Engagement for Candler School of Theology at Emory University. But my life's work is I am a domestic violence advocate. And primarily in the last few years, I focused on the clergy response to domestic violence. So that's me in a nutshell. And I'm a proud mother of my Joy.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Joy. Shout out to FAMU.
Oh yeah,
my baby.
That FAMU, right?
Yes.
Oh, that is so cool.
Shout out, yes.
Congratulations, girl.
Thank you. My baby.
So I'm not going to keep you long because it's bedtime eventually, but I'm going to kick it off with some Q&A. One of the first questions, of course, is what is domestic violence and what forms can it take beyond physical abuse?
So the short answer is domestic violence is is violence or aggression against an intimate partner or someone that is in a domestic relationship with you. And so I think the misconception is that domestic violence is always with a heterosexual marriage or, intimate relationship. However, it can also extend across parent to child, grandparent to child. It can be whoever's in the house. It can be sibling to sibling. So I think that's one of the misconceptions. And I wanted to state that from the very beginning. Because that was part of my formation and part of my story is understanding what was actually taking place in my family, right? And then the types of what it can look like, really how does it take shape?
Oh, right.
Yes, it can be everything from emotional abuse, like the gaslighting, the narcissism, things of that nature. It could also be rape. A lot of people fail to realize that there is a such thing as rape in a married relationship, and
Yes.
a, the aggressor will use reproductive abuse.
Mm-hmm.
They'll keep the person pregnant, or they'll get them pregnant, force them to have abortions, that kind of thing. That's domestic violence. Financial abuse, especially if they are the primary breadwinner. We now have stalking.
Mm-hmm.
So much
It's
stuff.
so many.
Oh, so much stuff.
Emotional, mental, like.
Oh, and see, okay, so the mental and emotional, I think, is where the challenge is, because a lot of people don't recognize that that's domestic violence while it is happening.
Right.
And when it starts increasing and actually becomes physically violent, that's when people, oh, that's domestic violence. No, the seed has already been planted. It started with the name calling. It started with the gaslighting. It started with, questioning where I'm going, what I'm doing, who I'm doing it with, what time am I coming home, putting trackers and on my GPS trackers on my phone, on my car. Like it starts with that kind of manipulation.
Right.
It starts with those kind of things. And primarily more so than the physical violence. Like the physical violence is once it hits escalation for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every situation, of course, is different, but
I think it's kind of like the root and start of it is
exactly
the unseen abuse that everyone hasn't put eyes on, because mostly people are familiar with physical, so they see it.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
mean, telling me what to wear, how to wear my hair, not to put on makeup, what kind of clothes I can wear, checking my phone, checking my text messages, looking at my emails, like all of that is considered domestic violence. So, or parts of domestic violence. Yeah.
Okay, so why do you think domestic violence often goes unnoticed or is misunderstood by the general public?
Primarily for the reasons I just stated. One reason why I think domestic violence goes unnoticed is because oftentimes you don't see physical signs unless you're really paying attention. And yes, you have those that have physical signs of abuse, like bruises or cuts or swelling or broken limbs or whatever the case may be. You have people that have been shot at. You have people that you can see the physical manifestation of the abuse. However, often there are many times you don't see the physical manifestation of the abuse. And that's when it becomes dangerous, because even for myself, my experience was when I became a young adult, the physical manifestation was my migraines, right? It was the things that you could not see. It was just like I had headaches because of the beatings. Like I was getting headaches. And so I think that's one of the reasons why it goes unnoticed, is because a lot of times people are looking for physical signs that that person is being abused or has been abused or is in an abusive relationship. And you don't always have to see the busted up mouth. You don't always have to see the black eye. You don't always have to see the bruises and the scrapes and the cuts. That stuff you don't always see. So I think that's one reason why it goes unnoticed. And I think your second question was what? Why is it misunderstood?
By the general public, yeah.
Yeah. This is just okay. Disclaimer. Disclaimer. My disclaimer is the words that are about to come out of my mouth and mine only. Okay. I'm just gonna say that. I think it's misunderstood by the general public because unfortunately in society we have glorified toxic relationships, right? You see it on social media.
Absolutely.
You see it in music videos. You see it in movies. You see it on television shows. You see it in you see it in reality TV. We have glorified toxic relationships, and we have put it on a platform and on a pedestal to the point where people think that's how relationships are.
Right.
Yeah, it's normal, literally normal, and it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
It's,
In no way,
it's, it's societal, and they make it conditioned to where, okay, that's okay that they do that, when it's
right.
really not.
It's
Not
not.
okay.
It's not. Well, remember when we were younger? There was just like, if a boy like you, he'll hit you, right? He just showing that he like you.
Oh, they just like your. Oh, he touched my hair. Oh, he just like you. No, he
Right.
don't.
Yeah, he just aggressive because he likes you.
Yeah.
Like that. He doing it because he love you. Really?
No.
That's not how that's
I feel like it starts at different stages of it too.
Mm-hmm.
It comes to
Mm-hmm.
that. So
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the third one you kind of answered on that one, but let's see. Why do victims of domestic violence sometimes stay in abusive relationships, and how can outsiders better understand their situation?
Whew. So, one of the, and I kind of want to go back to the other question too before I get into this one. So we talked about there are not always being physical signs, but I also want to talk about what some of the signs are.
Mm-hmm.
So what some of the signs are is sometimes the abused will become aggressive, right, because of the abuse that they're receiving.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll become withdrawn. They'll isolate themselves. They'll become very nervous around people. Anxiety is a very big thing when it comes to domestic violence survivors. A lot of domestic violence survivors cannot look people eye to eye.
I said to me, look,
Yeah, same.
It's like,
oh, I'm in therapy. Yeah. Listen, I still go to therapy.
Absolutely.
And a lot of survivors, they find it hard to make eye contact or to have one-on-one conversations. So that anxiety is like, it's a real thing. Right. Substance abuse, they turn to drugs and alcohol. Some of them become very aggressive and very promiscuous because it's a coping mechanism, right? It's the way that they escape the reality of the abuse. Some pick up habits like gambling or chronic shopping. These are things that we don't think about. You know what I mean? Yeah, they were like, "Oh, she's just getting retail therapy." No, she she might be going through something.
I do that too.
Yeah.
Like transform.
There are people, especially with this day and age of social media, people that seek attention. Like they always have to be the center of the show, or the conversation or the situation, or whatever the case may be. I'll even, one of my symptoms, I guess you could say, or signs, was the migraine headaches. It's easy to say I have migraines because I have sinuses and I have allergies. It's the changes in the weather, so it's easy to excuse some of these signs, right? But one of my signs was migraines, because of the amount of trauma that I had, to my head. Right. So I was getting migraines all the time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So why do they stay?
That's like
one of the biggest. Yeah.
Why do you just want, like, y'all don't understand?
No, so and I'll say this. So another symptom or sign of domestic violence is sometimes you have difficulty understanding things. Like it's hard for you to learn, like if you go back to school, that kind of thing.
Right.
And the reason why I brought that one up is because when I was with my ex-fiance, the one that was abusive, the one that I left, he seemed to have increased his level of abuse once I went back to school. And I remember my therapist saying to me that she was surprised that I was able to maintain my classes and things of that nature, because one of the signs also is you have difficulty learning or understanding because of the abuse. So people stay because they don't want the aggression to increase. They don't want the backlash. They don't want the violence to increase. They don't want it to go from you yelling and screaming to you actually punching, or punching to hitting and kicking to shooting. You know what I mean? They don't want it to to increase. Another reason why people study finances.
That's a big one.
That's a huge one. And I'm not sure, each state has their own laws, unfortunately.
Right.
But in the state of Georgia, and please look this up because I want to make sure you get the correct information.
Okay.
But in the state of Georgia, I believe it was last year. Yeah, I think it was last year. It may have been this year, but I think it was last year where they passed the bill for victims of domestic violence being able to break their lease without penalty. So think about the financial implications if I'm leaving an apartment, trying to break my lease, trying to get away from somebody, and I'm breaking my lease, so that's money that I owe, right?
Right.
I gotta have money to get another apartment, but because I broke my lease, now I have to owe 2 or 3 times more to move into an apartment.
Right.
And then now my credit is all jacked up, and now my resources are slim, and so I might as well just stay. They stay for the children. They stay for
that's a big one.
Yeah, they stay for the children, or they stay for the family. You know, we don't family get into relationships, or they stay because of their beliefs.
Right.
My religion tells me that I should work this out. I should pray about it, and I should stay with my husband or my wife or my spouse or my boyfriend or my girlfriend, whatever the case may be, because we don't do divorce. My religion tells me I cannot do divorce. Or cultural reasons. You know, there are cultural reasons why people stay. Before I even knew the extent of the cultural impact on domestic violence, I remember substituting one time in an elementary school. And, you know, back then, you have kids.
Yeah.
And you know how they're in school and they have to move their card from like green to yellow, yellow to red, or whatever.
Or they have
and I'll never
clips.
forget. Yeah, or clips, or whatever. And I'll never forget that this. I'm not gonna say what school, and I'm not gonna say but I'll just give you a scenario. But this child was hysterical because they had to move their clip or card or whatever from like green to yellow. And I mean, hysterical. And I'm like, it was just like, you didn't go from like green to red, you just went from green to yellow. And they said, no, I'm going to get in trouble. And I said, okay. And so because it wasn't my class, I was like, I really, I just put a note in the folder or whatever. But she was hysterical. She just cried and cried and cried. And she lifted up her shirt and showed me her back. And come to find out, in that particular culture, children were being beaten with canes or something like that, or paddles. It was something like that. But that's still a level of domestic violence. Child abuse can be part of domestic violence. So even from the cultural implication, people stay because of cultural beliefs. So yeah. Those are the main reasons why people stay. But I would say the primary reason is because they don't want the escalation of violence.
Right.
They don't want the violence.
Keep it kind of level, kind of stay put, do what's being asked, and kind of keep it moving.
Keep moving.
Yeah, definitely. I think you answered that one about the families. You touched on the financial control. Most of these are kind of repeating questions, but you kind of circle around a bit. Let's see. What kind of resources or help are available to individuals who are trying to leave abusive situations?
So each county, again.
And I'm learning that the counties.
Yeah, each county, states is so difficult. And in the state of Georgia, every county does not have domestic violence resources.
Exactly.
So if you live near a metro area, like if you live in Metro Atlanta, you have access to resources that are not only just in like Fulton County or DeKalb County, but you have resources that are also in Cobb County, Gwinnett County, that kind of thing. If you live in, like Athens, Gainesville area, Hall County, they have a domestic violence task force. They have Gateway Domestic Violence Center there. The primary source I always point people to is the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And I point people there because no matter what city and state you live in, you can be directed to resources that will assist you.
Right.
I encourage people to find out if your county or if your city has a task force.
Okay.
If they have a task force, 9 times out of 10, they can lead you to the correct resources for that particular area that you live in. But the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence is one place that I lead people to because it has a list of resources, and it also has a list of resources to assist with developing like a safety plan. Also, when it comes to like things that we were talking about,
right.
recognizing abuse,
yeah,
you know, what abuse looks like. Even when it comes to children, one of the things that I'm grateful for, and I didn't share my story, so I'm going to share just a brief bit of it, but so I started experiencing domestic violence from the time I was in my mother's womb, literally. Like I was born into it. And I was raised in a household that was very violent. I'm a childhood survivor of domestic violence. I'm a college survivor of domestic violence, and I'm a young adult survivor of domestic violence. But for my young adult years, I also had my daughter with me.
right.
And one of the things that I'm grateful for is that there were resources to put her also in counseling. While she was a child, while I'm also going through my counseling to deal with the domestic violence. And in addition to the counseling center that we went to, she went to a child therapist and then I went to a therapist. A lot of people don't know this, but even in our school systems, they have counseling available in the school systems.
Yeah.
And that was one of the best things that could have happened. She did not necessarily talk about the abuse because I don't think it was necessary because my daughter did witness a lot of it. However, when you have the breakup of a family unit, when you have the disruption of schedules, when you have unknowns and uncertainties, when you have to move, like these are things that you still have to deal with, and I think therapy will help with. So that's a resource that's available to everybody, especially if you have children at school.
Right.
Yeah.
So they need the love too.
They do.
I honestly feel like they need to kind of, not to say they need it more, but they need it a little bit more with their stepping of it.
Yeah, because children of abuse, I can't remember what the statistic is right now. I want to say it's like 60-something% or maybe 80%. Children of abuse grow up to become abused.
Right.
Or the abuse. I think because they become the abuse. Yeah. I mean, I met that statistic, right?
Right.
But it's my hope and prayer that we shatter that with my daughter.
Right.
We started it early, like putting her in counseling, sending her to therapy, even me having the conversation, like, how did this make you feel? What do you remember?
Yeah, open that up.
Yeah, because I think about the household that I grew up in, and my brother doesn't remember anything, right? But I remember
everything, right?
So it completely impacted me differently. Like, yeah, it was so normal to me to see such toxic and abusive relationships. And when I think about how our relationships, when I say our, like my brother's relationships that he has had, the relationships that I have had, it's very clear that growing up in that household impacted me differently than it impacted him.
Right.
He's married.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to hope somebody act right. Just act right for a little while.
Together. For God's sake, just
act right for a little bit. But no, it's very clear.
Yeah.
It's extreme. I mean, it's very clear how it impacted my relationships. I mean, very clear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't think people realize that until you start doing the work, going to therapy, going to
Right.
counseling, having the dialogue, having these conversations.
Exactly.
When you start doing the work, you don't realize how
And you
much that
kind of
has impacted
you
you.
piggyback and you start peeling layers, because that's kind of been my thing probably within the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Peeling back and be like, you know what? That was really
Yeah.
abuse. Like putting it to the side, not recognizing it, making it into something that it isn't when it really is that. So
Right.
that's pretty much been my journey in the last 2 years. Is like going back to core memories of things that had happened like 14, 13 years ago
Mm-hmm.
until now. And it's all kind of unraveling. So yeah, it can definitely have an effect. And then you try to go out there and mix and mingle, and you just like, I'm all right. I'm kind of like,
Listen,
I'm just like,
Avance, let me tell you something. If you breathe wrong, I'm like, you gotta go.
it's that.
If you are chewing wrong, like I don't even like the way you look at me. Like, why are you looking at me like that?
It's the one slick little thing. I'll just be like, I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely impacts your dating life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. How can friends and family support someone they suspect is experiencing domestic violence?
So I'm going to answer that question in two ways. The first thing is, if you know they are experiencing domestic violence, believe them. If you have a family member or a friend or someone tells you that they are being abused, the best thing you can do is to believe them.
The first time.
Mm-hmm. Because what breaks my heart more than anything is all of the commentary that I hear after someone has been, buried because you didn't believe them the first time. Right? So believe them the first time. And when you believe them, don't victim shame them. Don't say, well, you should have left. I don't understand why you stayed anyway. Like, don't do all that. Believe them and support them without all the extra. Because the truth of the matter is, you really don't know what you would do if you were in that situation. You can say what you would do all day long.
Right.
But until you walk in that person's shoes, you really don't know what you would do. The best thing you can do is believe them and offer support in ways that makes them feel not just safe but protected.
Right.
Make them feel like you are protecting their story. You're going to protect their honesty, the fact that they were honest with you. You're going to protect your friendship or your relationship with this person, right? You're going to protect their vulnerability. They came to you to share this information with you. You need to protect that. And the other way that you can be supportive is walk with them on that healing journey. So whatever resources that you find, assist them with creating a safety plan, point them in the direction of resources for counseling, for therapy, to file a TPO, for shelter, for housing, for food, for legal assistance, whatever the case may be. But yeah, believe them the first time, Yeah, I'll never forget somebody told me, like, well, what did you do? I'm not going to say what I said because we're on the live. I was like, what? But now I was like, excuse me? What did I do? I'm sitting here telling you that this man beat me. You asked me what I did? And it was a woman that asked me that.
What? You know what?
Yeah, it was a woman that asked me
gender
that.
rolling out, but I feel like a lot of times it's our own. Like, girl.
Well, I be wondering. I'm like, did she say that because she's in the same situation
and don't know how to voice it, and she not at that point yet of sharing or being embarrassed? Yeah.
And so your other question was, what can they do if they suspect it? So if they suspect abuse, don't act like you didn't see anything or hear anything or feel anything. Ask the question. Ask them, say, Rashana, are you feeling okay? Is there something you want to talk about? I notice you haven't been yourself lately. Is there a way I can support you?
Right.
You do you feel like you're being harmed in any way? Is there someone I can, can I make an appointment for you? Is there someone you need to talk to? Do you feel safe?
Right.
Do you feel like you need to get away from whatever? Just have the conversation and be sincere about it, because again, and I don't know who your complete audience is, but I'm gonna speak from my lens as a Black woman in America. It's already hard out here.
I just had this conversation today with
It's
two other young ladies. It's just like, just waking up,
already,
being us is already a start to the
yeah,
craziness.
it's already hard. So it's already hard. Don't make it harder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Seriously.
don't make it harder. We struggling, trying to just live, just
Day to day.
be.
Like, I'm just gonna get
Yeah,
through these couple hours, and I'm gonna worry about the afternoon when I get to the afternoon. But
right.
this morning, I'm gonna worry
So,
about this coffee. It's definitely a measure of taking
yeah.
steps towards it, for sure. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things in especially in the Black community,
Mm-hmm.
what we say, what happens in my house stays in my house. Don't
Yeah.
be telling people all my business, da 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 da. I'm telling everybody, because and I did. Eventually I did. I told
I mean,
everybody that would listen. Like,
right.
this is what is going on with me, and this is why I am the way that I
Mm-hmm.
am. And I need help. Like, I really need some help. And so it's all of our problem.
Right.
And because domestic violence doesn't just look like, again, I said it in the beginning, it doesn't just look like a black eye.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just look like, a beating or someone yelling and screaming. And domestic violence is no respecter of person.
Not all.
It's no race, it's no gender, it's no creed, it's no culture, it's no religion, it's no socioeconomic status, it's no educational level,
At
it's no
all.
sexual orientation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the domestic violence spans across all of that, all of
Yeah.
it. So it's all of our problem.
Each and every
Yeah,
one of us can
each
contribute
and
in
every one
some
of
way.
us. Yeah,
Like, the littlest stuff too. It's just it's the little stuff for me.
yeah.
Sure. Let's see. I think you answered most of these. Yeah,
Or
we
if you
did.
have any questions that aren't on there, just
We
ask
had
away.
the society work. I think you did that one. Oh, this one. How has the legal system evolved? I think you spoke on that a little bit about the law. How's
Hmm.
the legal system involved in addressing domestic violence, and what more can we do? Like, what can be done, I guess, from a legal aspect, or
Hmm.
what more can legal do to kind of help in these situations that they aren't already doing?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things I think legal can do is do more community collaborations, and that has been like one of my sticking points when I go speak from a clergy perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because you can't do this work in silos. You have to come together to do the work.
Right.
So you need the community's piece. Our community should be empowered to speak up. They should be educated enough to know, again, what domestic violence look like,
Mm-hmm.
what it doesn't look like, what resources are available, that kind of thing. But you also have your religious institutions, your faith-based institutions, where a lot of people, that's the first place they run.
Right.
They'll run to the church, or they'll run to the synagogue, or they'll run to the mosque, because that's where they feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another partner that should be in collaboration with the community, your faith-based, and then you have your legal, right?
Mm-hmm.
The legal, simply because you are the ones that know the process and the procedures, how to file the TPOs, what laws, apply, um, can he or she do this?
Right.
Am I able to get out of this lease? Am I able, and then you have the community collaborators, the partnerships with the organizations such as in Cobb County, they have Live Safe Resources. They also have the Cobb Advocacy Center, which will eventually become the Cobb Justice Center. You have the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence. You have the Georgia Commission Against Family Violence. You have all of these partners that can work in tandem. And one of the ways that the law enforcement or legal has evolved is because they are starting to work more collaboratively.
Right.
Normally, it would be a thing where the first time I experienced it here, I was a stalking charge. And now stalking is a felony, right? But before it wasn't a thing.
Right.
And I'll never forget a police officer told me, well, there's nothing I can do unless he physically harm you. And I was like, wait. I said, so you can tell me this man got to kill me first before y'all do something about it? Like, how does that work? Yeah. And I'm thankful that I found another officer that took me seriously and was able to assist me with how to get some assistance and how to kind of rectify that situation. But I also think even those that are assigned to those types of situations and cases, the training has gotten completely better. It has changed way. It has gotten so much better than how it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think that's how they evolve. They are working more collaboratively. Of course, we still got some work to do, but they're working. Yeah, they're working collaboratively, and they are trained a lot better to respond and not to react.
Right. Which I think is good because my situation kind of moved really quickly than I expected. So I was just like, okay, let's go. Let's get the show rolling. So I was actually kind of peace. They came out and answered any questions I had and kind of pointed me to where I needed to go and to kind of get things handled in a speedy manner instead of waiting until something even worse than what had already happened took place. Right. So I can definitely agree on that with the growth and expansion of it. But I think it'll be better though. The more hands and involvement we get with society. I think we need a little bit more outside of the legal too though.
Yeah, that's why I was saying it has to be a collaborative effort. So one of the things that I like about the Justice Center. So Justice Centers is not just a Cobb County thing. They have them all over the country. Okay. And the Justice Center, I don't like to use this terminology, but it's the best way to describe it. It's like a one-stop shop, right? You can go to the Justice Center if you're a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault, to get legal assistance, to get mental health assistance, to get housing assistance. So you can go there and file a TPO or go there and get counseling or go there and get housing or go there. You can go to this one place to get all of a suite of services without having to, I got to go down to the police department. And if I leave there, I got to make an appointment with the counselor. And if I leave there, you get to go to this one place because as victims, as survivors, of those that are thriving, even family members, having to repeat that story over and over and over and over and over again while you are in the thick of it, is so damaging. Can be damaging.
Yeah. And it's kind of discouraging too when you have to go from point A to point B, go to multiple locations, and at some point you go on and say, okay, I don't feel like doing all this.
And that's what happens, right? Yeah. Think about I want to say it's like 40%. I think it's 40% of cases go unreported. Mm-hmm. So think about how many don't report it because of that reason. Right. I got to do all this just to get some help.
Right. It's like and they just go, they leave, they go out and do. It's like whatever. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm not.
And so that opens it up for them to victimize someone else.
Right.
Or to re-victimize the person that they hurt the first time. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's all my questions I have right
You
now.
sure?
Of course,
You can ask me anything.
I'll be digging you personally.
You can do that.
Like,
You
hey,
can definitely do
Rashonda, here's a rundown.
Yeah, you can do that.
I definitely want to do more with this. Like, I'm getting more into the comfort of telling the story, kind of getting out of that shell, kind of opening up a little bit more. I think I've come into encounter with too many people, women, and it's like hey, you have this, what are you gonna do about it type of situation. So it's time for me to kind of get out there and do what I need to do to help the next person who may be in any type of similar situations, or giving them some type of resources or hope or something like that. So definitely try to push this narrative a little bit more going forward. So I'll be like, hey, Rashonda, what you doing?
I'm available.
What you doing?
I mean, that's what I believe my life's work is. I mean, so yes, I'm a 3-time survivor of domestic violence, but the thing that really pushed me into this work was in 2016 when my childhood best friend was murdered.
Yeah.
About a week or two before Mother's Day. And I have never experienced that level of anger before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not know what to do with my anger. Like I didn't know what to do with it. And I'm up here thinking to myself, that could have easily been me.
Right.
I survived it as a child. When I went through it in college, I thought that was the end, like, because it was a police officer. So I was like, yeah, he got a gun and everything. Like that could have just easily been it.
Mm-hmm.
When I went through it as a young adult, by that time I was so numb because it's all I knew, and I had been through it so much. I just didn't know what to do with it. Like, I was tired of fighting. I was exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't surrounded by healthy or loving relationships to give me a different example.
Right.
And some of it also had to do with the lack of self-love and self-respect that I had for myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but when she was murdered, I'm just like, this is unreal.
Right.
She didn't have to die
At all. And it doesn't have to come to that.
No,
like,
she didn't have to die. And so I was so angry that I turned my anger into advocacy.
mm-hmm.
Especially when you hear about so many of our young Black boys being killed and you see how their moms become advocates.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was that level of anger
Right.
that I had. But I wanted to do something beyond the advocacy part. I wanted to be able to understand the law completely.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know what resources are available. I needed to know what were the procedures. I needed to understand where the loopholes existed. I needed to, like get in my mind how something like this could happen. I needed to know everything possible from every avenue possible so that it would not happen again, at least not on my watch.
Right.
At least not on my watch. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So that's how I ended up, becoming an advocate. And I just feel like an advocate is just like it doesn't fully explain the depth of what it is that I believe I've been called to do in this work.
Right.
And my hope is that I can serve as the bridger between at least the Christian church. I'll just say that faith-based organizations, in the domestic violence community, because sometimes it's our theology that keeps us in relationships. I talked about that before, about the culture and the religion. So disclaimer, no disclaimer, I'm a Christian, right? And oftentimes you'll hear pastors, oh, just pray about it and God will deliver you and things of that nature. But, we also serve a God of wisdom. Amen. He puts people in place. He puts procedures in place. He puts processes in place. He have us surrounded by organizations and resources so that we don't suffer in silence. I don't serve a God that will want to see me hurt and abused and unloved and in pain and kicked and punched. And I don't serve a God like that.
At all.
Not me. I don't serve a God like that.
Me either.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's my hope. My hope is to be that person to kind of bridge those conversations, so that we truly can do meaningful, collaborative community work,
right,
to end, at least lessen domestic violence in our area, in our communities, because it doesn't. She didn't have to die.
At all.
Yeah.
At all. Well, ma'am, I thank you so very much for taking time out this week. Look, I finally found, I was like, ooh, I found something. Yes. This has been a moving thing. I'm like, no, I gotta get Rashana on something. I was like, okay, I got the podcast, but that ain't it. It's like specific things that are called to certain people. And it's like, okay, that didn't work out because it wasn't supposed to. This one was supposed to work out because it was supposed to. So I think it kind of giving myself time to kind of bring it all back. It's like, okay. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, you're phenomenal. You're doing amazing
work tonight.
Yeah, you've done amazing work. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. We have to do amazing work together.
I'm with it.
So
I am with it.
I will definitely be linking up. I'm trying to push everything out more. So I'm giving myself the rest of this year to kind of like get everything wrapped in together. But started 2025 off strong, definitely. So
sounds good to me.
Pretty excited.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I thank you for tuning in. This will not be the last of our live sessions regarding domestic violence or any type of violence, but mostly for this month being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I wanted to kind of shine light on that, bring awareness, give you all some input and some insight on some information. So be sure to look out for any other things I have going on, as well as Miss Rashana. She has amazing stuff going on this month. You've been busy. Ooh. Popped out that calendar. I was like, yeah.
He's so silly.
Say, drop the dates, please. But yes, y'all please support any endeavors Rashana has going on. Also support her daughter, Joy, is doing some great stuff as well. I have been watching.
Hey, Joy. I don't even know she's on, but hey.
Oh, yeah. So I kind of watch in silence to see, but y'all are doing great things. I appreciate it, though.
Thank you.
You guys have a good night. See you later.